So I take refuge in the Buddha, the one bright mind, the Dharma, the lineage of teachings that have gone down from the millennia, and the Sangha, all those who try to embody and practice with their true hearts. So this is case number 13 of the Mumonkan. It's called Tokusan's Bowls. Now, each case is about wisdom. And sometimes a particular case, a particular koan has one essential point, and sometimes it has many points. But they all are about our life. And they all are exercises. How can we make the deep, profound truths of the universe ourselves? How can we embody them? So sometimes it's a profound truth that is manifested in something very simple, and sometimes it's something that's sometimes it's the simple reflecting the absolute, the profound, and sometimes it's the profound that is found, expressed, seen through the simple. It can go kind of both ways. So the one we're doing this evening is a rich, complex, challenging koan. It's called Tokusan's Bowls, and here's the koan. Tokusan is the Japanese name. One day, Tokusan, he was the senior teacher, went to the dining room carrying his bowls. Seppo, the head cook, asked, "What are you doing here with your bowls? The bell is not rung, nor has the drum been struck." Tokusan turned and went back to his room. Seppo told Ganto about this, and Ganto concluded, "Tokusan is well known as a great teacher, but even so, he doesn't know the last word of Zen." Tokusan heard about this remark and sent his attendant to fetch Ganto. "Do you not approve of my teaching?" he asked. Ganto whispered something to Tokusan. Tokusan was silent. The next day, Tokusan ascended his rostrum as usual, but this time his teisha was quite different. Ganto, going to the front of the hall, clapped his hands and laughed loudly, saying, "Congratulations, the old man has got the last word. From now on, nobody will be able to get a rise out of him," is the translation here. Mumon's comment, "As for the last word, it has never entered the mind of Ganto or of Tokusan. When you come to look at it, you'll find they are both like puppets on a shelf." And then he has a verse, "To know the first word is to know the last word. But neither the first nor the last is a word." So some koans are very straightforward, and they are looking for the absolute side of things, the oneness of things. So a koan like the sound of one hand. And the sound of one hand is a koan where you listen deeply to silence. You listen deeply to ever deeper silence. You become silent. Or the koan Mu, kind of a classic koan. A monk came and asked the great master Roshi, "Is it true that even such a lowly thing as a rat has a Buddha nature?" And Roshi said, "No." And so then that no becomes, the Mu becomes the essence of the koan, or who am I? Who was your face before your parents are born? Some of these kind of koans are actually asking us to look into the nature of reality and see what is common in all places and all times, to see what is the underpinning of reality. This particular koan is very complicated. It's a morality play. It expresses, embodies many different kinds of points. It's about our practice, our life. And so it's considered one of the really difficult koans when you're going through the koan curriculum. This is a hard one. And you can see why. You hear this koan, you think, what is it about? How do I work on it? What's the point? So let's talk about the koan just a little bit before we go off. So this koan, one day Tokusan was a senior Dharma teacher. He was known in ancient China in the, I think, 1200s, maybe 1300s, as being a great Zen master in China. And so he had a really big reputation. So using him in this particular case means here is a wisdom point. Here's a very famous teacher who's going to talk about something, wisdom point. And then he goes to the refectory, to the dining room. And those of you who've been to the monastery know that we often eat with oryoki bowls. We have a whole set of bowls. Each person has them. So this guy had his bowls, and that tradition has gone on for thousands of years. He had his bowls, and he was walking to the dining room. Now, he may have been, kind of befuddled like I am and kind of gone at the wrong time, which I'm very prone to do sometimes. Or the dining room, the kitchen may have been late, whichever was the case. He met the cook there, and the cook said, "What are you doing here? Why'd you come now? The bell hasn't rung. It's not time. We haven't called it. Why are you here?" And so Tokusan immediately just left and went back to his room. That's the whole first part of the case. What is that about? So then Seppo, who's the head cook, was kind of pleased that the teacher came and he sort of scolded him and admonished him, and he just turned around. So he was kind of feeling pretty good about himself, saying, "Well, I kind of put one over on him. I showed the old guy what's true." And he was boasting about this a little bit to his elder brother Ganto. And Ganto said, great master though he may be, he doesn't know the first word of Zen. The last word of Zen, sorry. Doesn't know the last word of Zen. So, the teacher heard about this and said, what's going on here? You don't approve of my teaching? You think there's something amiss with my teaching? Why'd you say that? And so Ganto, who got called to Tokusan's room, whispers something in his ear. Now, that's another part of the koan. What did he whisper? We have to be able to understand both the point of the koan, the social situation of the koan, and this particular play. So part of the koan is, how do you whisper something? What are you whispering? What do you say? And then, so Tokusan didn't say anything. The next day, Tokusan gave a teisho, a little dharma talk like this. But he was very different. He was very lively and very, vivacious, very excited, enthused. And so Ganto then comes and says, he finally did it. He now understands the last word of Zen. He now understands the ultimate teaching. So this is a complicated story. And to see it clearly involves a kind of insightful eye. All of the koans are based upon non-duality. They're all based on non-separation. There's a teaching in Buddhism called the 5 eyes. And it's helpful to think about this because it helps us get a sense of there's lots of levels we can look at things at. So the first eye is the ordinary eye, the eye which all of us are seeing right here, right now. The eye that sees, duality, that sees objects, that sees books, that kind of walks around walls, finds doorways. The ordinary eye. Now, our ordinary physical eye in itself is very limited because of the whole spectrum of light. We can actually only see a small sliver of that. So the ordinary eye is by nature a limited eye, but it's one we all know. So if we're seeing from the ordinary eye, we're seeing we're seeing like everybody else sees. We're seeing the surface of things, our standard assumptions about things. But when teenagers are just becoming cognizant of the world, they often see things in very concrete ways. They have a very clear sense of, the way I see it is the way things are. And that, as we all know from our experience, gets gradually dispelled. And our view becomes larger and larger and larger. So the next kind of eye, the next view, is sometimes called a wisdom eye. It becomes to be a broader eye, a bigger view. So a small eye, a lot of people only see the rat race in front of them. But without negating that, it's possible to have a bigger view, to have a bigger eye, to have a bigger sense. So for example, in our current political situation, a lot of people only see that little slice of the politics. But when you know a lot about history, when you've seen the history of the political movements and the ebbs and flows both in our nation and the world, it's put in a different perspective. So the wisdom eye is an eye that begins to see space, it begins to see broader, it begins to see bigger context of things. It also is an eye that begins to be able to see emotional motivations, to be able to see what's going on below the surface of things. And as we all know, sometimes as we mature, we become more sophisticated. We've watched people, we've engaged with people, we begin to recognize patterns. And so as we mature, we can see a little more deeply into what people's motivations are. We can see a little more deeply into what's going on. And that is the nature of practice too. That people start off with meditation and they're only seeing the very first part of meditation, the good housekeeping brand of meditation. Good housekeeping meditation is you sit down, you calm yourself, you go into a happy state, and voila. But that is only the very thin top layer of meditation, and has nothing to do with the real wisdom function. So as we practice more and more is revealed. More is revealed about us, about the nature of our mind. More is revealed about the nature of emotion and thought, or where it comes from. More is revealed about other people. We have a bigger view. So there's that level of seeing things. But if we continue looking more deeply, we actually can begin seeing through things. We begin not seeing the world as a place just filled with all these hard objects that we're bouncing up against, and that we're this pinball that's being bounced around between the hard objects. But we can actually begin to look into things. We actually begin to see everything is shifting. Everything is fluid. Everything has some flexibility to it. And if we actually look deeply into things, we can begin to see the emptiness, the space inside of things. We begin to see that it's not just a car, but the car is composed of lots of parts, and each of those parts is composed of lots of parts. And we begin to see the multifaceted nature of things, that they're not lumps, but they're actually aggregates. So we can begin to see the aggregates, and we can begin to see those aggregates are not stable blocks, but they're in constant motion. So as we practice, our eye becomes more discerning. Not that there's something different out there, not that we suddenly are seeing ghosts in the room that weren't there before, but that we're actually seeing what's right in front of us through a deeper lens. We're actually being able to look into things a little more deeply. The next level of eye in this tradition is that when we actually see the interconnection of all things, when we actually realize nothing is separate, everything is intertwined, all of our lives are intertwined with so many different people's lives, the stream of people that brought us our food, the stream of people that made clothing, the stream of people that are involved with transportation and fuel, the stream of people that affect us having lights in here or an auditory system in here, we begin to realize is enormous. And so as our eye matures, we begin to see through the separation between me and other people. We begin to see through the separation that I am this small little lump here. And we begin to see through and realize all of us are in the same boat. All of us are intertwined. And when we can begin to see the equality of all people, the heart opens. The heart opens because my suffering is not the degree I don't like my own suffering is the degree you don't like your own suffering. The degree that I am, not the degree, but my own dissatisfaction is also the dissatisfaction of other people. It's not as though I have this corner on a particular experience or sensation, but there is joy everywhere. There is sadness everywhere. There's compassion everywhere. So as our eye becomes more and more deeply, we realize, oh, I am resonating my pain is the pain of the world. My joy is the joy of the world. And we can begin to see the joy that's out there, the suffering that's out there, and it gives rise to compassion, it gives rise to sympathetic joy, it gives rise to the four immeasurables. Not from the perspective of other, but from the perspective of the dynamic, lively engagement, the dynamic, lively reality of our interpenetrated selves. And then the fifth eye, so that's really a bodhisattva eye. When our eye is deep enough and we actually see the nature of suffering and the human condition, the heart opens. And the last eye is the eye of integration, the eye of oneness, the eye that sees no separation, the eye that sees samsara and nirvana, freedom and entanglement, just two sides of exactly the same thing. So, that's not what this koan is about, but so in this koan, here's this guy, this head cook, whose eye is not very open. And he's and the way it's set up in the koan is, here is one of the greatest Zen masters of all of China. As an old, refined man. And this brash young cook kind of meets him. And, the brash young cook boasts about what's going on. So, obviously, Seppo, the young cook, doesn't have the eye to actually see the wisdom and the maturity. Doesn't have the eye to see what this person who's been practicing probably for 60, 70 years, doesn't have the eye to see his state of mind, his maturity. And we all have experienced that in our lives. We've all dealt with some young people or teenagers who just don't know. Nobody can know what a 40, 50, 60, 70-year-old person feels, experiences, without being 40, 60, 70, 80 years old. I'm sure all of you remember back when you were probably 18 and you thought you were so mature, you thought you were such an adult and you kind of knew about the world, or when you were 22, or when you were 25, or when you were 35, and now I look back, I'm almost 70, and I think, oh my goodness, I was so immature at 50. I was so immature at 60. So that's the way it is. So so this part of this koan is about how do we deepen our own ability to see into things? How do we deepen our own ability to actually see through and to grasp the richness of our lives? So it's not about some old guy in China. It's about the richness of our life. What are we not seeing as we go through our day, as we talk to our friends, partners, as we talk to people we meet at work or in stores? Can we open our own eye to see beyond the surface? Can we open our own eye to see, why in the world is this person working as a clerk? What led them to be working as a clerk in this grocery store? Sometimes you encounter very intelligent people and you think, boy, I would hate to have this job. Why did they end up here? And to actually begin to appreciate the nature of people's karma, to begin to appreciate some of the threads that led each of us to our own unique circumstance. So that's part of what this koan is about. How do we develop that eye? And the way we develop that eye in this tradition is, first off, you sit down, you calm your mind, you begin to let go of all that reactive stuff. Somebody, when I was younger, people could say George Bush, or they could say just W. And the letter W, everybody would get all excited. Or George Bush, everybody would get all excited. Or Donald Trump, or whatever. That's just reactivity. That's just, this kind of habitual stuff that's in there. So the first stage of practice is be in the present moment. Become really aware, right here, right now. There is no politics. There's just this room. There's just this sound. There's just this light. How do we really rest in the present moment as it is and let go of all that stuff that's burdening us that's not there? Let go of all that reactivity so we can meet things directly. And in a way, that's part of what Tokusan is doing. Somebody comes and he yells at him, and he instantly responds. Yes, just quietly responds. No reactivity. So we sit down, we calm our minds, we begin to bring in the present moment, we begin to let go of reactivity, and then we have the ability to actually use our eye to see things more deeply, more clearly. So, in this part of this koan is this young person's state of mind and Tokusan's state of mind were different. Not better, not worse, just different. And then, so as we look at a koan like this, we think, if I were in that situation with my deepest state of mind, if I were buying groceries with my deepest, wisest, most heartfelt state of mind, if I were driving with my heart wide open, if I were negotiating with, the customer service over the telephone, with my wisdom eye intact, how would I be? How would I respond? How would I react? How would I? So again, that's part of what this koan is asking. It says, can we in our own life, can we see more deeply and more clearly? Well, so Ganto comes, he hears his friend boasting a little bit, doesn't argue with him, but he sets up a situation to help him. Now, Dogen Zenji talks about four ways of helping, 4 ways a bodhisattva helps. First way is with kind words. To say kind, honest things to people. We all like that. The second way is to actually offer a hand, to be supportive, to help somebody lift and carry things, to go get groceries for them, to offer them a ride. Say things, to say the truth kindly, warmly, supportively, to offer kind action. I'm trying to think what the third one is here before I... The third one is to give, to be generous. So if we are giving with skill, that's a benefit to people. If we're giving with intelligence, or we're giving with kindness. So speaking kind words, doing kind and skillful, wise things, being generous. And the fourth one is kind of being one with people, identity action. So it means aligning yourself with people for the benefit, so there's not an other, so that we can, from that alignment, we can teach and be of service. It's really hard to be of service if you're confronting or trying to make people change. But when you are aligned, when you are working together, for example, we got a hard job and everybody jumps in and does something, that alignment, that working together has a greater benefit than just what our hands are doing. It has a benefit that we all are in harmony with one another. So Ganto comes, and he is immediately in harmony with Seppo without making Seppo wrong and Tokusan right, or vice versa. He just says, this great teacher, he hasn't seen the last word of Zen. And then, so that's another little part of the koan. What is the last word of Zen? What is the ultimate truth? What is the ultimate teaching? And this great teacher, one of the greatest teachers in all of China, 1,000 years of Dharma, didn't see, what is that? What's that mean? So that's the next part of the koan, is what is the deepest truth of our lives? And it's not a thing. So we can't look for a thing. We have to actually see beyond things. And things, of course, are made from the concepts and the ideas we have in our mind. So, just to quickly go through the... Tokusan calls him in, they have this exchange. Tokusan is very different the next day, he acts very differently. And Ganto says to his friend, now you can have faith in this teacher, because now he has understood the last word of Zen. And perhaps the whole thing is a little play for the benefit of Seppo, a little skillful means. And how can we be skillful in our lives? What can we set up to help other people be skillful? If we're looking at, one of the things I often tell people is, this is not the ultimate truth. This is not the ultimate teaching. Because there is no ultimate teaching. You know, they're just the teaching of the moment. There is no ultimate teaching. If there were an ultimate teaching, it's like the end of time. Is there no time beyond the end of time? There's always something more. Always another side, always another dimension. There is no ultimate teaching. There is no last word of Zen. And yet, there is spiritual maturity. So perhaps this whole thing is a little play of how do we act in a skillful way to help others. And perhaps we respond sometimes with silence and walking away, and sometimes we respond with, giving a whole Dharma talk and doing something like this, watching the lights do what they do, So in essence, this particular koan is about cultivating our wisdom eye. Being clear about the point of practice and offering that in whatever way we can, wherever we are, as a bodhisattva. To be flexible so that we don't have our idea of, this is the way I got to be, I got to do this, I got to do this, I got to do this, but to actually be flexible with an empty mind to respond to circumstances appropriately. And not be confused by the dance, not be confused by the craziness of the world, but to know one's center so that we have a place of spacious equanimity that is responsive and will turn on a dime to be able to help others. So, and that's a little about the koan. Now, to actually practice with the koan, you'll have to come to a lot of session and do some other kinds of things. But it is a profound koan and a very difficult one to actually penetrate. And the way you have to do with every koan is you have to show that you understand this not with your head, but with your body. You have to be able to show with your own hands, what's the point of this koan and how can I make it alive? And with every koan, it's not the words that are so important, it's the spirit that we have to embody. So that's true with all of our practice here. We can all be good people in zazen and be calm and collected and look very wise when you're sitting in here. But the only thing that matters is when you are out there talking to people, what is the spirit that you carry? Do you really carry a spirit that you're aware of, a spirit that is your true heart's felt aspiration? Are you really trying to express that? And then that's when practice becomes alive. If it's just in the room here, so what? We're only in the room a few minutes. This is just to help us become familiar with a particular state of mind so that as we walk and engage, we can offer that over and over to people. Okay, I've talked too long. Thank you all very much for listening.